young woman, weary and hungry, collapses on a park bench under the glow of the city lights. A mysterious man approaches, offering help she didn't ask for, but desperately needs. What follows is an opportunity that could change her life forever, leading her from despair to a future she never thought possible. Will she embrace the chance to rewrite her story, or will the shadows of her past hold her back? This is the story that will leave you speechless. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any inspiring stories I share. Ana Gasol sat in the quiet library, her broken old phone screen glowing faintly as she read yet another rejection email. Position filled, it said, just like the dozens of others before it. A tattered notepad rested on the table beside her, its pages filled with job postings and half-formed plans. Her thrift store blazer hung awkwardly on her small frame, a size too large but her only shield against the December chill. Across the room, a sharply dressed man watched her over the edge of his newspaper. His gaze lingered, sharp and calculating, but Ana didn't notice. She was too focused on the battle playing out in her mind, hope against despair. That evening, Ana wandered to Heaven Park. She clutched her phone, using it for light as she walked the winding path to her usual bench. The city's glow reflected faintly in the pond ahead. She sat heavily, her body weighed down by hunger and exhaustion. The world seemed to blur as dizziness washed over her. Her hands trembled, and her vision dimmed. Just as she slumped forward, a voice cut through the haze. "Miss, are you all right?" Ana opened her eyes to see the man from the library kneeling beside her, his expression lined with concern. "You need help," he said firmly. Too weak to protest, she let him guide her to a sleek black sedan waiting nearby. Moments later, she was seated inside, her mind swirling with questions she didn't yet have the strength to ask. The hum of the car's engine filled the silence as Ana leaned her head against the cool window. Her mind swirled with questions. Who was this man, and why had he taken an interest in her? The stranger, seated beside her, seemed at ease, his piercing eyes fixed on the road ahead. His suit was pristine, every thread exuding a quiet wealth Ana couldn't comprehend. She shifted uncomfortably, feeling out of place in her worn-out clothes and second-hand shoes. "Where are we going?" she asked hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. "To my home," the man replied calmly. "You need rest and a proper meal." Her instinct was to protest, but the ache in her limbs and the gnawing hunger in her stomach kept her silent. For once, she surrendered to the kindness of a stranger. The car slowed as they pulled into a long winding driveway flanked by towering trees. The sight before her took her breath away, a sprawling estate bathed in the soft glow of twilight. The mansion stood like a fortress, its grandeur overwhelming. Ana hesitated as the man opened the door for her. "This can't be real," she murmured. "It's real," he assured her, his tone kind but firm. "Come inside." Inside, the air was warm, filled with the aroma of something savory. The polished floors reflected the glittering light of a chandelier above. Ana's eyes darted around, taking in the opulence of her surroundings. She had spent nights sleeping on cold benches and floors. This felt like another world entirely. "Sit," the man said, gesturing to a plush chair in the dining room. Moments later, a steaming bowl of soup was placed before her. The rich aroma made her mouth water. She hesitated before taking a spoonful, savoring the warmth that spread through her. "Thank you," she said softly, glancing up at the man. He nodded, his gaze steady. "You fainted in the park. I couldn't leave you there." "You've already done too much," Ana said, her voice laced with both gratitude and discomfort. "Why are you helping me?" The man paused, as though considering his words. "Let's just say I've been where you are," he finally replied. "And I see potential in you." Ana frowned, unsure how to respond. She wanted to trust him, but years of hardship had taught her caution. "Who are you?" she asked, breaking the silence. The man's lips curved into a faint smile. "Gabriel Gasol." The name hit her like a thunderclap. She blinked, trying to process it. Gabriel Gasol, the billionaire mogul, a name she'd seen on skyscrapers and charity galas splashed across the news. She felt the blood drain from her face. "You're him," she stammered. "Yes," he replied simply, his expression unreadable. "And you are?" "Ana," she said after a beat. "Ana Gasol." The room fell into a charged silence. His eyes narrowed, studying her intently. "Gasol," he repeated, the word heavy with meaning. "Yes," she said cautiously. "It was my father's name. David Gasol." Gabriel froze, the spoon in his hand clinking softly against the bowl. His face, normally composed, reflected a storm of emotions. "David," he whispered. "Your father's name was David?" "Yes," Ana said, her confusion mounting. "Why?" Gabriel rose abruptly, his movements sharp. He crossed the room and turned back to face her, his expression both pained and hopeful. "David was my son." Anna's world tilted. Her grip on the spoon faltered as she stared at him in disbelief. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Gabriel's voice trembled. "I'm your grandfather." Ana stared at Gabriel, her mind reeling. The words hung in the air, impossible to grasp. "I'm your grandfather." "That can't be true," she said, her voice shaking. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "My father never mentioned you." Gabriel's expression softened, though his eyes were clouded with regret. "He wouldn't have. David and we didn't part on good terms. He was proud, and so was I, too proud, it seems." Ana shook her head, trying to make sense of it all. Her father had been many things: kind, hardworking, and fiercely independent, but he had never spoken of family beyond her late mother. "How can I believe you?" she asked, her voice tinged with both anger and fear. Gabriel moved closer, his gaze falling to her arm. "That mark," he said quietly, pointing to the faint crescent birthmark on her upper arm, just below her sleeve. "It's a family trait. My son had the same one." Ana instinctively touched the spot, the familiarity of the mark suddenly feeling foreign. Her mind flashed back to childhood memories of her father brushing her hair back and smiling whenever he saw it. "It's just a birthmark," she said weakly, though even she didn't sound convinced. "What was David's middle name?" Gabriel asked abruptly, his tone urgent. Ana hesitated, her eyes narrowing. "Elias," she replied. "David Elias Gasol." Gabriel's face crumpled, his shoulders slumping as though a weight had been lifted only to be replaced by another. He sank into the chair opposite her, his hands trembling. "There's no doubt," he murmured. "He was my son." Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. Ana felt as though the air had been knocked out of her lungs. "If he was your son," she said slowly, "why did he never tell me about you? Why did we struggle so much if you're... you?" Gabriel winced, his face a mix of guilt and sorrow. "David was determined to live without my help," he said, his voice raw. "He wanted to prove he could make it on his own, without the family name or fortune. I tried to convince him otherwise, but he wouldn't listen. Our fights grew bitter, and eventually he walked away. I thought he'd come back when he was ready, but he never did." Tears pricked Anna's eyes. She thought of her father working late into the night, his hands calloused from labor, his back bent under the weight of his responsibilities. He had carried so much, never asking for help, never hinting at the family he had left behind. "He was a good man," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He didn't deserve this." Gabriel nodded solemnly. "No, he didn't. I failed him, Ana. And for that, I will carry the guilt for the rest of my life." Ana felt a storm of emotion swirling within her: grief, anger, confusion, and an odd flicker of hope. This man, this stranger, had turned her world upside down. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Gabriel's gaze softened. "Because you deserve to know where you come from. And because I have a lot to make up for." Ana leaned back, the weight of the revelation pressing down on her. Her life, already fraught with struggles, had just taken a turn she could never have imagined. She wasn't just a homeless girl with a degree. She was the granddaughter of one of the wealthiest men in the world. The moments that followed felt like an eternity, as if the entire world had paused just to let Ana process the weight of her new reality. Her breath came in shallow bursts, and every thought seemed to race, colliding into the next. Gabriel's admission had shattered her understanding of everything she knew about herself. "I'm your granddaughter," she repeated quietly, the words still tasting foreign on her tongue. Gabriel watched her carefully, his face etched with pain. "Yes, Ana. And I've missed so much of your life. I can't change the past, but I can try to be here now." Ana looked down at her hands, the fingers that had scrawled countless applications for jobs that would never come, the hands that had held onto dreams that now seemed so distant. She felt a bitter pang in her chest. Was it really that simple? Could she just accept this billionaire grandfather who had no part in her life until now? "And you want to help me?" she asked, lifting her gaze to meet his. Her voice was sharp, defensive. Gabriel's eyes softened, and he nodded slowly. "I do. I can't undo the years of hurt, but I want to give you the opportunities you never had. I can offer you a chance to start fresh, pay off your student debt, help with whatever you need. I'm here to make things right, to build something together. Ana felt a mixture of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. Anger was the most prominent. Anger at a man who had watched his son struggle, knowing he could have helped, and yet he had stayed away. Anger at the universe for throwing this all at her when she had learned to survive alone. I don't need your money, Ana snapped, rising from the table. The heat of the argument flared within her. I've made it this far on my own. I don't need your charity or your help to fix what's already broken. Gabriel stood up too, his movement slow but steady. I'm not offering charity, Ana. I'm offering you what you deserve. I've made many mistakes in my life, but I can't sit by and let you continue struggling. You have so much potential. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. Could she accept this man, her grandfather, a stranger who was offering her everything she'd ever dreamed of, but whose family had abandoned her father? Could she trust him after everything? She turned away, looking out the grand window at the sprawling estate beyond. It was a world so far removed from the one she had known, a world she had never even dared to imagine. But in her gut, something stirred. A glimmer of hope. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice much softer now. Why offer me all this? Gabriel's gaze softened, his voice low. I want to build a legacy, Ana. Not just for me, but for our family. I want to right the wrongs of the past. And I want you to be a part of it, on your terms, no strings attached. Ana's mind raced. The weight of her father's lessons about self-sufficiency echoed in her mind. He had never accepted handouts, never relied on anyone else to lift him up. His pride had kept him going, even when he had nothing left. But Gabriel was different. This man, this stranger, was offering her a chance to change the course of her life. She could help her family. She could make a difference. But at what cost? What do you expect from me in return? She asked, eyeing him carefully. She wasn't about to be fooled. Gabriel smiled faintly, the expression a mixture of hope and respect. Nothing. Not if you don't want to. I know how important it is to earn your place. If you want to walk away, I'll understand. But if you stay, we can build something meaningful. Ana remained silent for a moment, considering his words. There was so much to think about, too much to process in a single sitting. But the one thing that resonated deep within her was the opportunity to do something that mattered. To honor her father's memory, to honor herself. Okay, she said finally, the word barely above a whisper. Gabriel's eyes lit up with a mixture of relief and anticipation. Are you sure? I'm sure, she replied, her voice steadier now. But I'm doing this my way. I'm not interested in taking the easy road. Gabriel nodded, his respect for her growing with every word she spoke. I wouldn't expect anything less. I'll help you in any way I can, but the rest is up to you. Ana took a deep breath, her resolve strengthening. She wasn't going to be a pawn in his game. This was her life, her future. She had the power to shape it, to carve a new path for herself, one that honored her father's spirit and her own strength. As she looked at Gabriel, her grandfather, she realized that this was the beginning of something monumental. She wasn't just a homeless girl with a master's degree anymore. She was Ana Gasol, and the world was about to learn her name. The following weeks unfolded like a whirlwind, a life Ana could barely recognize as her own. Gabriel stayed true to his word, offering her help without imposing conditions. He paid off her staggering student debt with a single stroke of his pen, a gesture that felt both liberating and overwhelming. Yet Ana made it clear she wasn't going to lean on him for everything. I need to earn my place, she insisted, refusing his offer to move into the estate. Instead, she chose a modest apartment on the city's outskirts, far removed from the sprawling luxury of the Gasol manor. Gabriel respected her decision, though he couldn't hide his disappointment. You're as stubborn as your father, he remarked with a small smile. Ana smiled back, a flicker of warmth breaking through her usual guarded demeanor. I'll take that as a compliment. But stepping into her new life wasn't without its challenges. Gabriel's extended family was less than welcoming. Whispers of skepticism followed her wherever she went, questions about her motives, her character, even her lineage. At family gatherings, the tension was palpable, particularly from Gabriel's distant cousins, who saw Ana as a threat to their inheritance. She just showed up out of nowhere, one relative muttered loudly enough for Ana to hear at a dinner party. How do we even know she's really his granddaughter? Ana kept her head high, refusing to let the doubts of others weigh her down. She had faced far worse in life than judgmental whispers. One ally emerged unexpectedly, James West, the family's lawyer. Initially skeptical, James was tasked with verifying Anna's connection to Gabriel. The DNA test results left no room for doubt, but it was Anna's integrity that won him over. "You don't have to prove yourself to anyone," James told her one day after a tense family meeting. "But for what it's worth, you've got my respect." "Thank you," Ana replied, touched by his words. "But I'm not doing this for their approval. I'm doing this for me." Despite the resistance, Ana began to carve her own path within the Gasol legacy. She spent hours poring over Gabriel's philanthropic ventures, identifying ways to make a real impact. Her education in public policy and social work proved invaluable as she developed a vision for a foundation that could help others like her, those burdened by debt, struggling to find their footing in an unforgiving world. When she presented her idea to Gabriel, his eyes glistened with pride. "The Phoenix Foundation," she explained. "A place where students can find support, guidance, and the resources they need to succeed. It's about giving people the chance to rise from the ashes." Gabriel's voice was thick with emotion as he replied, "Your father would be so proud of you, Ana." For the first time, Ana felt the stirrings of belonging, not because of Gabriel's approval, but because she was creating something meaningful. She wasn't just inheriting a name or a fortune, she was building a legacy of her own. The foundation's launch was met with both praise and skepticism. Reporters flocked to cover the story, eager to frame Ana as the homeless girl turned heiress. But Ana remained grounded, refusing to let the spotlight distract her from her mission. Gabriel supported her every step of the way, attending meetings, offering advice, and occasionally butting heads with Ana's stubborn determination. "You remind me of your father," he said often, and Ana had begun to treasure those words. As the months passed, Ana's relationship with Gabriel deepened. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. Gabriel opened up about his regrets, his pride, and his hopes for their future. Ana, in turn, allowed herself to trust him, piece by piece. Through it all, she never forgot her father's lessons. She worked tirelessly, proving not just to others but to herself that she was capable of standing on her own. And as she saw the first students enter the Phoenix Foundation, their faces filled with hope, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.